maybe, and we want to kind of break that down and look at some of the research that we've done over the years recently, you know, just constantly keeping up with some of the information, and also the empowerment and what tools are available to us, the public, as well, and what we can do to stay ahead of the game.
So as always, throw in your own comments. We're not saying we're the masters of anything.
Yep.
If you know anything about things that we might cover today, like for example, today we're doing a bit of UN, background on the UN, United Nations, that kind of thing. But this series is going to span back to like 1,000 years ago, because a lot of the times the reigns are 1,000-year reigns. They always, you've probably heard that from different people in different times. 1,000-year reigns are really important to them. So we're decoding basically the control system that we all have to live in. There's no escaping this. It's not made up. It's not, a lot of people maybe living in dreamland don't realise what's going on around them.
But we're going to show you the facts, like we're going to show you some of the evidence that brings this all together, their own the things they speak into existence. Reading between the lines, as Matt said, decoding, so that you can kind of see how they'll put things in your face so that you really can't ignore it. And when you do see it, it's really hard to unsee it. So we'll just move on to the first slide, if that's okay, Matt. Okay, so the topics that we're going to be talking about are listed here, but they're very general topics. But the first thing we're going to be going over is what is the occult. So just giving a brief overview, because a lot of the occult has been demonized or trivialized by the powers that be so that we don't have access to it. The next topic is, why would organizations use the occult to enact their plans? So what would the purpose be of that? And examples in plain sight, so what they're doing right under our noses, or what they have done over the last 1,000 years under our noses to show what they're doing, basically, and how we, the people, can utilize the same kind of powers for our own empowerment.
And I think most people might notice occasionally that there's a lot of symbolism in the occult, a lot of numerology, a lot of numbers, 33, 666, all that kind of stuff. That you'll see a lot of that through it. We're not going to point out every single little coincidence, as some people would call them. Now we did a start on this series not long ago, and we actually got banned pretty quickly for saying certain words. So there's certain people we can't talk about, which is a little bit unfortunate. But that's all a part of the system we're in. Sometimes we might have to do a bit of a hint as to what we're talking about, just due to these simple things that the machine senses everything. So
so read between the lines with what we're saying as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. We might even have to do hand gestures or all sorts of things. But there's definitely certain words and people we can't talk about, and that's just how it is. So we'll do our best to decode by making sense of it all at the same time. And I personally think the most interesting thing of the occult and all the Masons and the Jesuits and all the different groups, there's lots of different groups, but I think they're all in the same club anyway. They're like politics. They're all on the same side. They're all in the same club. They're just us versus them, basically. But nowadays it's them versus us. So, there's a lot of that going on. And I think if you go look around, you watch like a live like this, you go and look around and you'll start noticing things that maybe you didn't notice before. To the simple fact of the occult is always told, in the media, we're always told what a load of bullshit, horoscopes are bullshit.
Trivialized.
Yeah, and they make you look like an idiot if you follow any of it. Yet the highest powers that be use it. They have their own readers, and like Prince Charles, for example, is right into it. Everything he does is symbolized, it's symbolism, and it's in your face. But then the same people who act like they don't use it and it doesn't exist, and people shouldn't worry about it. And I think what you'll notice a common thread is the powers that be really don't want you guys to understand or how to use occult symbolism, everything about it. And a lot of it's kind of like bad words, like conjuring would be a bad word, but manifestation is the powerful word. So there's a lot of double meanings when you hear words as well.
And words are spells, so we've all been taught spelling, and we think of spells, we know what they are, and when we utter it into existence, our language and our vocalization actually brings it into being. So our thoughts and our words that utilize or put them into action are very powerful, and we have more power than we're led to believe as well.
Absolutely, and that's the thing, like spells, spelling, all that kind of thing. It's always in your face. There's a million words that do the same kind of thing. They tell you because they have to, and
Yep.
that's a part of their kind of bringing things to fruition.
Which we'll talk about in this slide. We're going to talk about what the occult is and some of the rules, like the governing kind of divine laws and things like that that run these kind of things, and why it's really kind of hard for them to also bring these things into fruition and why it takes so long. So we'll move on to the next slide, if that's all right, Dol. So we do have to do a disclaimer.
It's not going to help.
It's okay. The disclaimer is basically to let you know that this is for entertainment purposes only. We don't have any affiliations with mentioned organisations in this video or any of this series. All of these things that we're talking about are our own personal opinions and viewpoints. So we're not here to try to sway anyone, or we're not here to try to convince anyone. We just wanted to put that disclaimer out there nice and early. Okay. All right. So is there really a spiritual war? So that is a big question that comes up, is people are kind of, sometimes wondering, is this even a valid thing? Does this even exist? And that is a question that even I've asked myself, because I think if you're sitting around in our private moments listening to Matt and I talk, we always kind of ask the questions, because sometimes when you're going down rabbit holes and you're looking at things, you really have to understand the sources you're looking at, and you have to understand your own intuition too. But I think there definitely has to be, underlying aspects to world events more than ever. It's really, really evident. I think in the last 5 years in particular, a lot of things have really come to light. But I do think that has been ever going for a long time. And to us, and when I say us, I mean myself and Matt, it is in plain sight, hiding under the structures, presentations and decisions governing our world. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, look, spiritual war is, we were actually going to call this series Spiritual Warfare, but we can't, because a lot of religious people think that we're talking about Jesus all day, and that's not what we're talking about at all. Like, unfortunately, the spiritual war that started 2,000 years ago just so happened that all these guys turned up on the planet at the same time. You know the crew, they all turned up, did their bit. There's lots of books written about them and whatever. Like, those people, they started the spiritual war. These books were not written by those people. They were written hundreds of years later by other people who want control. And I always find it kind of humorous to hear people who think they're quite awake because they didn't take this or they didn't do that back, a couple of years ago. And then they're harping on about Jesus crap. Like, I don't care whether it's Jesus crap, Muhammad crap. It's all there to control you and basically dumb you down. And, religion is the biggest problem in the world. Like, the UN's a problem. Our governments have now become massive problems. WEF's a problem. But the big one is always religion. It's they're the ones who did all this. Like, they're more in control than people would believe. And then, they're not just there to tell you nice Bible stories or whatever. That's not their job. Any research that we do in the future with this series could be the Vatican, different things like that. We tried to start one on that and got taken down straight away.
But we're going to talk more about, I think, how it all came to be as well, and how, the Christianization of Europe began, how Rome never really fell, those kind of things.
Absolutely. And the Jesuits, who basically are the Vatican's army. We'll get into all these topics as we go. So this is just a part one. This is just to lube you up a little bit on, where we're heading, where we're going, and that kind of thing.
And it's an endless series, really. So, as we said before, once you become aware, it's really hard to unsee these things that are going on. It's everywhere. Like, for instance, we had Lady Gaga playing in Melbourne this weekend. I wasn't aware that she was even coming until, it comes up on your social medias and things. And all of that is ritualistic. So it's no coincidence that her performance started right when the full moon was at its peak in Gemini on Friday night. Very kind of occult-like. Her presentation is very dark occult, and so this is a ritual. So that, and doing it here means that there's usually something coming after that. There's usually a portal opening or something like that. I don't want to bemuse people with all of that, but it's just that kind of stuff. Hollywood is a big part of this too. That'll be a whole nother presentation.
Music, Hollywood,
Hollywood. Yeah, all of these things.
So
all of the control or the programming that goes on is way more intrinsic than it looks to the naked eye.
And we're not here to overwhelm people
No.
either. Like, I can do a lot of research into stuff like this. I read a lot of stuff like this every day. And the main point is don't overwhelm and don't get bogged down by it.
Be
Because you're giving in then. Yeah, you need to learn how to empower yourself. And this is all about empowering yourself. So knowledge is power. That's, you know, one of the simplest sayings I've ever heard, and it's so true. So the more you know, the less you should freak out. But I often see people then get too much overwhelm, and they'll watch a series like this and just go, oh my God, it's horrible. This information, I can't handle it, and carry on.
The information is there to uncover, so that you shine a light on something. It's almost like you can't. It can't go into darkness anymore. So you are exposing it. It loses its power. That's right. And so what this series is aiming to do is just uncover some of those themes so that people are more aware, but also that's what you can do. So there's a lot that you can do. So say I'm not going to go
to Lady Gaga.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Or Taylor Swift or any of those things. They're really obvious constructs. But, you know, some of the artists that I really like that may have been caught up in some of this, you know, and may not even realise themselves, I'm not going to boycott them because, they've done something, or they're a part of a Hollywood party or something. Like, there are things that we're allowed to still take entertainment value from and enjoy, as long as you're aware not to get caught up in those rituals yourself.
It's knowledge. You understand even bands that I like that I don't like their ethics, and I don't like what they say in real life. But I can still listen to the music because it was catchy deliberately or whatever.
Or it has some themes that we apply to ourselves, and we use those words or those lyrics for messages that apply to us. And so that can be really, really positive as well. So,
absolutely. So don't overwhelm. Just cruise through the series, enjoy it.
Yeah,
without feeling any panic, or don't get anxious about stuff like this, because again, you got more power than you would believe, and it's the little butterfly effects that really matter. And just a couple of people thinking differently, you know, talking to other people with, you know, something they learnt today, that kind of thing is very, very powerful, and it helps. You know, it's kind of, you know, I've been black and I've been kind of white, and you know, we all choose one or the other, and this kind of series we'll delve into that kind of side of it too, the psychology of people, the psychology of how they trick us with stuff.
And also our belief systems. So it is intrinsic that we're sharing, we're putting our vulnerabilities out there. And with a decoding whether there is a spiritual war or not, to me goes into that depth of, do we have a soul? Those big questions. And I believe we do, and I believe that is the big part of us that they're really trying to break down. That's what I believe. But I believe that we can pull it back, even if we've involuntarily given parts of ourselves away. There are ways that we can pull it back. So we are more powerful than we think, and it is very hard for them to do this. So they might have all these tools at their hands, but so do we. And so empowerment is the goal at the end of this.
Is indeed. Let's roll a slide.
Yep. So, big question. What is the occult? So, the occult is the unseen, the things that govern humanity, that govern our world, that govern energy that we can't see. I found it very interesting that EBSCO, which is a government organisation that publishes articles and factual information, so very much in the matrix of their stuff, put out a description of what the occult is this year, and it was by author Jim Green, and it says the occultism refers to the study and the pursuit of hidden knowledge, often aimed at achieving spiritual insight or personal power, originating from the Latin word occultus, meaning hidden. The concept moves into esoteric, mystical, spiritual practices and rituals. So I thought that was very interesting because EBSCO is very censored, very programmed, and very directed at what their theme is, but they're giving us their insight into what the occult is. Now I have a little bit more, I kind of grew up around occult circles. So my mother was a very prominent tarot reader in Sydney. She had eclectic groups of people that she was very highly connected to in the inner west, and those people were very high profile occultist members. And so when I say that, it wasn't a Freemasonry group or anything like that. They were private groups. But she was reading for high prominent people, so giving them insights into their lives, wives of some of these famous people, and she was very well respected in the community. So I grew up with a lot of knowledge around the occult, and so for me the occult isn't scary. The occult is power, and so it's something that we all have access to. They try to make us feel as though the occult is scary and bad, and it's against their programmed religions, but the occult is not scary. It is just the energy and the manipulation of that energy by the power of us humans. So there are forces unseen. There are dark, there are light, there are, evil, and there are good. That doesn't mean that you can't protect yourself or use the occult for positive, loving forces or good things. You can. And that can bring you a richer experience. It doesn't mean it's going to bring you, the fame and fortune and things like that. That usually ends up going to the darker side. But it can bring you positivity, it can bring you love, it can bring you connection, and that's what this is all about. So the occult is ritualistic. So as humans, we are ritualistic. Nature is ritualistic. So all of the balances of the forces of nature are what drive the occult. So things like our cardinal directions, so north, south, east and west, very much involved in the occult, because the directions of the world pinpoint all of the energy. We have different timelines, we have different portals, we have different energy swells in the earth, so there's different parts of the world that conduct a lot more energy. So they are considered, the word portal sounds very scary, but it's literally like a shift in energy. So many things represent the occult: the stars, the solar system, the connection back to our times of birth, numbers. So
everything big happens on a full moon. Like we just had one.
Yeah.
And, like the UN, we were reading about them the other day, and they were talking about it, how just by coincidence, their biggest meetings, like the last 4 of them, all happened to just fall on a full moon. They act like they're talking about it as though they didn't know it was going to be a full moon, and they just happened to do
even
these
though there's a
massive
calendar
events
on one of the trusts that they're an organisational connection with, that lists all the full moons for them, so they can access.
Yeah, so they can plan their events. But to us, they act like it was just a fluky occurrence.
Wow.
Just 4 out of 4 flukes. It's amazing that they're so good at doing that. And you just see it everywhere. There's so many things you look at. Like some of the biggest ones I've seen with rituals and, in your face symbolism of things like the beginning of the Olympics, the opening ceremonies.
Yes.
They're mental.
Yes, and you're not allowed to talk about
No,
those.
that's a video that got taken down.
We weren't allowed to, were we?
No, decoding the opening ceremonies from the past. I did a video on that, and instantly the Olympic Committee jumped all over it and got it taken down. And you don't get a choice. You can't say, oh no, I think I should be allowed. There's no reinstatement with those kind of ones. These people are powerful, and you're not allowed to talk about them. You're not allowed to share their content. You're not allowed to do anything. Even the athletes aren't allowed to take their own cameras in, that kind of thing. It's all very serious, that they want you kind of, to watch it when they want you to watch it. They don't want you to watch replays. They want you to watch it on that day for a reason. But they're insane. Like the Olympic Committee, they're all the same people. It's all the same club. They just break them up into little groups, and you got the UN, and you got the Vatican, and you got the Olympics, and you got all these. But they're all the same purpose.
It's all ritual.
How come the opening ceremonies are never about sport? They're not. They're just the weirdest shit, and they're all preemptive. Like when you watch one from 4 years ago, every single time they were nailing it. Like they did the COVID crap. They did that in like London in like, it was like 2005 or 2008 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I can't remember the year.
It was around then, and they had the whole
ago.
thing played out as a big ceremony, a big theatre with all kids in the beds and big evil people with big needles and all this shit. And then 5 years later, boom. And the decoding I did on, say, the Olympic ones, all did the same thing. They predicted the future.
Well, they're planning it. So it's like doing a vision board. So when you're manifesting, you're creating. So we all know about The Secret. Well, a lot of people know about this. And manifesting is where you put it into action. So you visualize and you appreciate and you put that energy into something that you want to create, because we are all manifestors. And so they use that for good and for bad. It's arbitrary. You can take it in any direction that you want to. So energy is arbitrary. So you can direct something into a lower vibration or a higher vibration. Higher vibrations can be good and bad as well. So they can bring a lot of power, but they tend to, it's harder to hold it up when it's dark. It's a very big force, and it's very hard to keep it going. whereas light energy is more of the slow burn, and it you can keep it more buoyant though for longer. So it's hard to discern that. I'll talk more about the energy fields and the frequencies and things a little bit later. But what the biggest thing I wanted to kind of discuss for this presentation was the rules, the governing rules of the occult. So the things that divine energy kind of lets us and doesn't let us do. So part of that is permission and having an intention. So you always have to have an intention when you're directing energy. So without an intention, it's purposeless. So that's why people get away a lot with directing energy in weird ways, because it kind of burns out, because there's no directed intention. It's just wild power going all over the place. So when you want to enact something, when you want to bring something into being very clear on your intention and uttering that into existence can give it a lot more power. So intentions are number one. Number two is you have to tell the world, or you have to tell the energy as it is. You have to be clear on your intention. You have to utter it into existence. So that's why it's weird when you see powers that be telling us things that you think, you know, why would they tell us that? Why wouldn't they keep that secret? Because they're wanting to enact what they're talking about. So without telling us, or without exposing that, and without getting a lot of collective consciousness to bring it into being, these things won't happen the way that they want them to. A lot of the time they use code to tell us, so read between the lines, but there'll always be a term that gets used over and over again. One of those terms is New World Order or World Order. You'll hear that a lot in the terminology. And they might not be used in the context of a new world order, but they might say we need the world, you know, to come to order, or, you know, there'll be ways that they bring that sentence together. So intention, uttering the intention and creating that energy. The other one is consciousness direction. So consciousness direction puts a lot of power into a thing. So if you have collective consciousness or paying attention to one element of what you're speaking about, that will bring it so much more power. So you'll think about things like
money.
Money.
The biggest religion in the world, money.
That is a great example. So money is one. Another one is like news broadcasting, so programming. So they will have like a broadcast at a particular time of day every day, and they'll get a whole lot of consciousness streaming into that broadcast. Every news channel will have a similar program, and so everybody's tuning in to those similar news stories, and that gives it a lot of power. So if they want to bring something into being, like a plan or a event or something like that, they're going to put it on the news.
And usually fear-driven.
Fear-driven.
Gets the most action. And it's the same thing going back to like words or spells and that kind of thing. Program, they always call everything a program because it's programming you.
Yes.
It's the words, they're in your face every time.
So you don't need to be brainwashed by watching swirly patterns by hypnotherapists. It's happening all around you subliminally all the time. And so I always look at it like it's directing energy. So whenever something like that's coming at me, I know that I have the power to deflect that. So the other rule is that you're in control of your own energy and that people have free will. So that's the one that irks them. That's the one that pisses them off. Because when you have free will and they know they can't fuck with that, they can't mess with that, okay? And so your free will is everything, and they have to kind of manipulate the game in order to get you to comply, but you have to do so willingly. Yes, there will be coercion, there will be force, there will be all of those kind of things.
For example, mandate.
Yeah,
that's a new word that came in 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So they know they can't legally instill things upon us, so they use the new terminology mandates. Mandates aren't even legal. They're just telling you, we want you to do this, basically.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, people just take it as like some new
Fear.
law they have to do. Yeah, fear kicks in and they're like, oh, quick, I've got to go and do what the big government said me to do today.
And so fear will drive will. So if you're scared or if you feel compelled to do something, your free will be compromised, but they're still not, you know, forcing you with a gun to your head to do it. I mean, it feels like that. But it's still, your will is stronger than that. So they cannot enact that. They cannot make you do it. You could die, you know, standing up, not on your knees, and say, I have not surrendered my will. So that is something that we are all capable of holding on to. And so, yes, there is a lot of oppression, and it's really hard when, you know, the forces are against you. but will is something that they can't actually take from you directly. They do all sorts of things to try to get you to submit your will. Once you do that, they've got a lot more power than they did to begin with. So,
and they move on then. Like as soon as they know they've beaten us, the next plan starts getting interacted on, and then our future just gets more bleak as we let them do this. So each time that everyone gives up, you know, expect more shit to come at you. They give you a little bit of a break for 6 months or a year, and then they're coming at you again with their plan even better.
So if your will's more intact and they take it from you, it's even better for them too. If your will is depleted, it's not a strong energy. So it's all about governing energy. And so we run on that. We are like emissions of energy ourselves because we are very powerful organisms. We are frequencies, And I believe that our souls kind of gather frequency through lifetimes, and we come back and we have memory, we have soul memory. So that's something they can't take from us as well, is our soul memory. Okay, so the occult is a tool that can be enacted by everyone. Despite what they do with their secret ceremonies and all their things, it's not that tricky to decode and work out for yourself how you can use it for yourself. Nature is available to all of us. So we can all, you know, practice energy direction. We can all practice manifestation. We can all practice love and light and protection. And we can all do this. And as a collective, the more people that become empowered, the better we are at keeping our wills intact. Okay, and also obviously there's a number of organisations that use this for not so great things, not so wonderful things. Okay, so this is a very, this is where we thought we'd start, talking about examples that are really in your face, that are out there, that anyone can find just by looking it up, is occult organisations that actually are embedded with the powers that be, or the powers that run the world. So one of them is the Lucis Trust. So if you know anything about the Lucis Trust, drop a comment in if you've done your research down this rabbit hole. But the Lucis Trust was established in 1922 by Alice and Foster Bailey. Now, before I go on about them, they were Freemasons. So she married him, he was a Freemason. And so they established a company originally called the Lucifer Publishing Company to publish their esoteric work. So they wrote a whole lot of literature around rays of light, around the coming of Lucifer instead of the Christ, all of these things in a work, in a whole lot of literature works. And so they made this Lucifer Publishing Company. That became controversial for a lot of reasons, obviously. And so they changed it to Lucis in 1924. And the reason they did that was so that they could establish an arcane school. So an arcane, the arcanes are kind of the levels of magic, or the categories of magic. So there are different arcanes that you can practice in the occult. And that was established in 1924. So the World Goodwill, another sub-branch of the Lucis Trust, was established in 1932. And triangles, which triangles are huge symbolisms in the occult, was established in 1937, and it was under the guise of mental health support. So triangles and symbolism are a big part of the occult.
It's like their logo.
Their logo is the triangle. And the triangle is all about body, mind, spirit, essentially. And number 3. And so number 3 is like the code of the planet. It's like the numerical code of how things all tie together in nature. And so this is all very deliberately done. It has a consultative status with the United Nations as a non-government organisation, and it has done since a long time, since the 50s. So it is heavily tied into a branch of the UN to provide spiritual, meditative and occult support, so that they can draw on that for the goodwill of humanity.
I'm sure.
And that's how they write their connection. There are over 6,000 members of the Lucis Trust, but they are all secretive. But the location of its building, or its headquarters, is at 866 United Nations Lane in New York. And it was originally 666 when it first opened up, which is very interesting. So all of the works that the Lucis Trust has produced is all available to everybody publicly. So you can now, if you felt like it, you could go get on the website, which Matt's just got a screenshot of that.
Pull that up.
Yep, that's okay. If you can't, it's all right.
No,
but it's
I can pull it up. You just keep yapping.
lucistrust.org. And so anyone can get on there and find all of Alice Bailey's books. You can find all of the literature. You can find all the information around their sub-branches. You can actually find calendars that they put up for the non-government organisations such as the UN to use for when to have a meeting, like when's the best time to have a meeting, and it will be all of the moon phases. And so here is an example of their website. So Matt's just got that up there. And it's dedicated to the establishment of a new and better life for everyone in the world based on the fulfillment of the divine plan for humanity. So they don't say what the divine plan for humanity is in detail, but they do talk about the coming of the Christ, and the Christ has an asterisk next to it. And so they say the Christ will be whatever you want it to be, basically. But originally it was Lucifer, was the coming of this Christ entity. So they believe that Alice Bailey's books are there, The World Goodwill, the Triangles section, the Arcane School. There is meditation as a world service. So when people are meditating, they're enacting an energy frequency. So meditation is a very powerful tool. What it does is it helps you to transcend your energy. And so if you're doing that, what you're doing is you're directing all of that energy into collective consciousness. So they want you to meditate. If you're doing it under their guise, you're fueling this divine plan. So they talk about a hierarchy of consciousness and a hierarchy of spirituality. And so the hierarchy is only, we are kind of in the bottom rung of that, according to the Lucis Trust.
You're the stakeholders.
We're just the bottom rung, right? We're just the kind of batteries that feed all of the energy to them. But these very important people, like the Freemasons and the Jesuits and all of those kind of people, they're in the top run. And so they're kind of acting like, oh, wait, you're just the bottom hierarchy, but if you come into our organisations and you read all that stuff and you meditate with us, it will give you, basically will look after you, don't stress. So the books are all about bringing in esoteric astrology as well. So astrology features massively in their rituals. Now astrology, for me personally, is a very powerful tool. And so you can see all of this stuff. So she was around, Alice Bailey died in like 1940 something or 50 something, I think. So she was earlier. So she was late 1800s, early 1900s. So all her books and things were written around the time of the early 20s when they set up this trust. But she died at 69 years of age, not by coincidence as well. So they always plan when they're going to exit this timeline. So the timelines are another thing that it talks about as well. So the goal eventually for things like the Lucis Trust is to end up with a one world spiritual organisation and a one world government. So they want to bring all faiths and spiritual traditions under the guise of one religion or one spiritual belief. So it's all about that. They call it unity, but it's more about that control. And so this is the big envisioning that they've got. So if you look down to the side there, you can see that there's festivals, and it's the 2026 moon charts and meeting schedules that they have. So just under new on the site, if you look down to the second bit there, Matt, if you want to highlight that for me. So just there, just next to under the power shifts on the road, new on the side.
I haven't got my pen tool out.
Oh, that's okay. Yep, so it's 2026, you'll see moon charts and meeting schedules. So they have the moon charts and meeting schedules ready for people to watch. So you can actually download recordings on this site. They have recordings of Eleanor Roosevelt. They have all sorts of recordings of really intentional people on different parts of their website that you can play. There is also, in 1945, one of the biggest things, which I'm going to get to in the next slide, which you can just see down the bottom of the website here, the Great Invocation. was written by Alice Bailey in 1945. And so the end of the war, the Second World War, was a lot of high energy because everybody was obviously just fought this massive, energetic, explosive, destructive event. And so she wrote The Great Invocation, which is basically about the free will of men, and she calls them little wills, which I'll get to in a minute. And it is a prayer and mantra, apparently invoking light, love, and spiritual purpose into human consciousness. But my belief is that they used the destructive forces of all of the depression and sadness of World War I, World War II, Great Depression, all of those things to invoke a new era. That's my intuition, and I really trust that. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide, please, honey. All right, so the Lucis Trust holds a special consultative status with the UN Economic and Social Council. This is a formal designation that allows the organisation to engage with the UN on issues such as human rights. At one time, the Lucis Trust headquarters was located at 666 United Nations Plaza in New York City. Now it's 866. Interesting. And so they are located within the United Nations Plaza.
They're
so
best buddies. They're all hanging out. UN promotes them.
Yes.
These are the think tanks that the UN goes to. They're like, these are the people they talk to before they do anything. So it's like in your face, 666. I love it.
And so the main goals of the Lucis Trust is to establish that one world religion based on esoteric and occult hierarchies. So the thing is that if you do not allow them to subscribe you or to put you in a category like that, you do not belong in that category. So therefore their hierarchy to me is absolute BS. I'm not on a lower rung of anything, and I will not be controlled by anyone who tells me they've got more spiritual power than I do. Who do you think you are, basically? Like why do you have the ability, or do you think you have the ability to control humanity? Absolutely not. So Alice and Foster Bailey had strong connections to Freemasonry and secret societies. Of course, not all of that is revealed because they're secret societies, but we do know that there are connections there.
Well, when we were, yesterday when we were doing research, you put in to DeepSeek AI, who were the 6,000 people?
The 6,000 members.
6,000 members. And DeepSeek got back and said, no, there's nothing secret going on. Don't worry about it. Nothing to see here. Literally, that's what it said. And then Mindy pushed it and gave it a few kind of, prompts that were evidence-based from, other research about who could be on this panel. And AI suddenly turned around and started going, oh yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, but it is a secret. There are secret.
Yeah, it does have that many members. That is true. You have uncovered that.
Yeah.
It's what it said to me. You have uncovered that, but we don't know who they are.
Yeah. So 1 minute the AI is like, no, there's no secret.
We can't, I can't
Next
find
minute
evidence
it's like,
of secret
no, it is
members.
a secret.
Yeah.
Then you should shut up. It's like, it's like, let's talk about something else. It's like, no.
And that history on my DeepSeek prompting, because I use it for research tools a lot just to break stuff down, and that prompt is gone.
Yeah,
from my
deleted
DeepSeek account.
deleted that section itself.
But that's okay, I got what I needed. And I just wanted to see how, obviously we know how programmed it is, but just to see how you could prompt and push things in the direction you want to go.
Well, like AI pretty much is another ritual to me because it's not even real. It's a large language model. People don't understand what AI is. There's no smart computers. There's nothing with intelligence. Like most of humanity doesn't have intelligence, so I can't see a computer being any better than that. It's all programmed, and everyone believes that this thing's just like thinking for itself. It's nowhere near it. It's total bullshit.
I think if it's given human energy though, it's our energy that drives it, and that's what can become quite dark.
Well, unfortunately, people own it, and the people who own it are very rich billionaires who are steering, public submission into everything, and they're the steerers. So this thing is totally programmed to give answers to, Musk is going to obviously be pro-Musk and all the rest of it. So at the moment, the real battle is going on in the background between, I would say, the bad people. They're all trying to control AI. They want to own it. So Bill Gates is buying up everything he can, making 1 million data centers. So is Musk. So all the standard players are really spending a lot of time and money to be the biggest in the world, because they know that AI is going to be like the next Bible equivalent thing, where everyone will just kind of follow it and believe it.
It's
and
a great
already
way
working.
to program and to deep fake as well, because remember they've had these tools for a long time.
Oh yeah, large language
And
models
so-
have been around since the 60s. This is not new. AI literally at the moment is just used to prop up the stock market, because the stock market would go down the toilet in a second if AI was pulled, or if people worked out the whole thing's a scam.
Well, I think, Matt, that would be a good one to do for this series, is maybe touch on some AI
Technology,
and technology.
spiritual warfare.
For sure, because it's a big part of this, isn't it?
It is.
So
it
it
is
all ties
now.
back
All
in.
and people are having like relationships with AI now. It's all getting weird and sick. It's like, oh dear, they're winning. The powers that be are winning. People are being stupid again.
So the great invocation, which I touched on before, released in April 1945, very powerful time that people were living through. I couldn't imagine living through World War I, Great Depression, and World War II. I think that was a great time of depletion and dark energy. That energy is still running.
Well, unless you're oil barons or manufacturing weapons, they were pretty happy.
Well, that's right. But the destructive force of that really gave power and gave fear to the masses, but it also gave power to these lower vibrations, these controllers of our world at the moment. So this great invocation was a world prayer. And they used the word prayer, but it was a meditation that was based on Alice Bailey's teaching, and provides, a lot of clues. And I'm going to touch on that in the next slide, what kind of was existing in that. And so everything they evoke is available to be read about on their website. So you can find the whole prayer on that. Recordings, meditations, important occult dates, things like that. But in the great invocation, it states, "Let purpose guide all little human wills." And it says all little human wills.
Little nothings.
So it's not saying, so it's trying to diminish our will. And the purpose of all of these horrible events that have occurred through human history are to really break it down, to make us feel so depleted and unpowerful and just unable to mount a response. And so here it says the purpose which the masters know and serve. So who the F are these masters? And why do they think they've got control over us? That's always my question, because if we don't let them with our little wills, then they can't have control over us. And that's us. I know this slide went a bit ahead, but we pulled the website up and showed you how they intentionally tell us everything. But you've just got to find it. There's no one on the news telling you the Lucis Trust exists, is there? There's no advertising on YouTube about it. There's nothing coming up to tell you, I'll go to the Lucis Trust and look at their connection to the UN. Like, you have to go and bridge these gaps yourself. But all you need to do is kind of once you start rabbit holing, all the dots start connecting, and it's all there for you to gather the information on. And look, you could do this for weeks and weeks on end if you wanted to, but all it does for me is it highlights what their intentions are so that we can remain 10 steps ahead of them, really. That's the whole goal of this. So when I read things like that, let purpose guide all little human wills, I'm like, excuse me. No, my purpose and my connection to purpose is mine. Matt's purpose, his connection to purpose is his. We come together as husband and wife to create that. And we work really, really hard to maintain that will and that connection. And there is no master for us apart from our own consciousness and our connection to, our beings and our light source that masters anything that we do. Right, Matt?
Indeed, they can all.
Yeah, basically. That's what I was thinking. It makes me really angry when I read things like that.
A lot of this stuff goes back to the old families, the dynasties who really are in control. You don't even know their names.
I'm going to get a resource too, which I'll talk about probably in another one of these that I think Matt and I looked up years ago, but it's a CIA, the website.org, and you can actually download a PDF all about the families. It's very interesting. All right, so another society that connects back to organisations and governments and the powers that be, and the UN, of course, is the Theosophical Society. So the Theosophical Society was founded in 1875. So Matt has a lot of passion around the 1800s because he's done a whole lot of research around that, and he's going to do, I'm sure we'll do a series around the buildings and the connection to the 1800s.
Probably.
So the Theosophical Society was founded in that time frame. And so the Victorian era has a lot to answer for. It was a real landscape changer. It was a real time of enacting the early 1900s. So that was the fruition of it all coming together to the beginning of the new 19th century. And they were planning all of this catalytic stuff. And we know the early 19th century was really, really hectic. So it is known as the Universal Brotherhood of Humanity. So that's a pretty big lot of words to say. So universal meaning everything, and brotherhood meaning connection and that real masculine energy.
Yeah, the boys.
Of humanity. And so the Theosophical Order of Service was founded in 1908 and had a world collaborative to governments and the UN. So teachings come back to the esoteric understanding of universal law, which is kind of some of the rules and things that I spoke about before. Not everyone who practices the theosophy is bad, because theosophy is literally understanding things that are theosophical. So those things are available to all of us. So not everybody who is involved in that is evil or bad. But the society itself that was formed around this is not so great. Okay, and you can look at their logo and you can see how they're intrinsically involved with all religions. And so their logo says there is no religion higher than truth. And so they're basically diminishing religions.
Absolutely. They're like, it's bullshit.
But they're acting as though they're bringing everyone together.
Yeah.
So it's very confusing. But it is also
I wonder what
saying...
the little 3TT thing is at the top. I don't know.
I think it's like six, like, you know, the Sikh sects of Hinduism. And things like that. Yeah, so it's a Hindu.
I noticed it's a 3.
It's a Hindu, but yes, it's 3, but it's also a Hindu symbol.
Yeah.
So yes, the 3's above it, the snake.
The Egyptian, what do they call that? The staff in the middle there?
Yep.
I can't remember what that's called now.
But see the snake?
Yeah, eating its own tail.
Yep. So the snake always comes back to evil philosophy, dark. You know, the serpent was always a low vibration animal connection to the spirituals. So the serpent always does have very divine spiritual powers, and very interestingly connects back to the occult as a symbol of dark energy. And so we have the Christians, we have the Jews, we've got the Hindus, the Muslims, you know, they're all represented.
What about the little
symbol.
star thing in the circle? What do you reckon that one is? I don't know.
It's a Sanskrit. Yeah, it's a Sanskrit symbol.
Which, if it was
yes.
true to point, it would have been that German symbol you're not allowed to say the word of originally, because that was used everywhere.
But this was 1875.
Yeah,
this
so
logo
they've
was
changed
made.
it to
So
whatever.
this 1875 was way before.
Yeah, so it was already there.
A Sanskrit symbol. Remember, it came from the German one. Came from the Sanskrit original.
That's
symbol.
what I was saying.
And they flipped it.
That's where all those.
So there is
come
the
from.
history of symbology with big governments that have been around that used things that were quite spiritual for their connections. And we know that Hitler was very much involved in the occult as well.
Oh yeah, he was mental for it.
A lot of them are. And look at the power they can surmount, but it burns very quickly. Okay, now another interesting figure that connects back to all of these plans, this kind of spiritual warfare that we've been talking about, you know, when we were asking, is there a spiritual war? Well, Robert Mueller was a very interesting figure. He served with the UN for 40 years and became the Assistant Secretary General. So he was born in late 1923 and died in 2010. So he had quite a long life.
Was he 88?
Probably, or
69.
80, yeah, maybe 80, no,
80,
yeah,
what was he about?
87, nearly 88 maybe. He was a founding member of the UN from the beginning. So he was there early in the 50s. So UN was began in the late 40s or mid 40s, and he was a member of the UN right then when it was all being established. So his biggest work was that he had an idea to write 3,000 Ideas, and Dreams for a New Millennium, which was published in 1999. He ended up writing over 7,000 ideas and dreams. He had a vision for a new world order. So that's where the terminology kind of comes from, and a one world government. So he wanted to see the UN as the beginning of everything. So he was connected to the Lucis Trust, which we've just had a look at, and started the University of Peace with the idea of a one world education based on Waldorf Steiner's works. Now, the Waldorf Steiner stuff is very interesting too, isn't it? A lot of the elites have their children educated in this framework, and it's all about losing that connection to yourself, and it's all about things like the energy is greater than yourself and all of this kind of stuff. And it's very tied back to some of the really old Germanic occult symbology too. So they have things like faceless dolls. So those dolls can be manipulated. It's almost like a very bizarre...
It's like voodoo dolls.
Yeah, almost very bizarre that they'll let
Could be
children
anyone.
play with those dolls and manipulate the energy
But
of...
no personality, they're just blanked.
And so the idea looks very loving and caring from a parental perspective when you look at it, because it's all about free play and childhood and energy and things like that. But it's really quite dark when you look at some of the teachings.
We should do an episode on Steiner. He's really interesting.
Yeah. And he's got some very high spiritual beliefs, but they're very religious and very tied back to some of the biblical references too, which is very interesting. So there are details on, he still has a website, Robert Mueller, and they have lots of details all about him, but he was very much about the UN, and he wanted to see this vision of this one world control, and he uses words like New World Order, and he actually believed that the UN was a biological organism, so it's actually quite full on. So I'm gonna pull up a video of him doing an interview in the 90s, early 90s, and we're gonna kind of see what he was about, but it's very interesting watching him. Can you put the headphones up so I can't hear it?
And this, I hope it will be its future, if the people who believe that the UN is wrong and should be finished, if they do not win.
Now, before we turn the cameras on, you were telling me that there is a lot of worry in the United States that we will surrender our sovereignty, do away with our Constitution, be taken over by the UN, have foreign troops on our soil. There are articles appearing in major magazines, and there is genuine concern here. Would you address that problem, please?
Well, to tell you the truth, since I'm in favor of world peace and world cooperation, I'm no longer worried about the UN. If this had happened, let's say, 3 or 4 years ago, I would have been very worried. Now I'm no longer worried. Why? Because if the UN is not strengthened and allowed to be the world order of tomorrow,
the world order of tomorrow,
order of tomorrow will arise in Europe. Why?
So so you hear the language that he's using, talking about world order, and that things that get uttered into existence are actually what the plans are. So when people are touted as conspiracy theorists for talking about New World Order, this is where the language comes from. So it is from the horse's mouth.
Well, let's finish up. Let's leave this video run and finish up on just letting him do his bit kind of thing. Do you reckon?
Is there another slide after this? I can't remember.
I don't know.
Just let me have a look first, sorry. Yep, keep going with him.
Because we have a European community where the borders have disappeared, where we have elections to a parliament, where the European community has a budget of $70 billion in the first year. And now 4 northern countries have joined. In a year or 2, we are going to have Russia, the 16 former republics of the East who will get in. And when it comes to Kyrgyzstan and others, the European community will be in Asia. And then the temptation for the Chinese to join the European community and the Japanese to join, because Europe is not a little Europe, it is Eurasia. You have one continent that goes from the eastern coast to Asia. And the dream of my compatriots in Lorraine, in Alsace-Lorraine, who wanted to make a peaceful Europe, their dream, the dream of Robert Schuman, was Eurasia and Eurafrica. In other words, that the European countries should take care of Africa. Those who colonize...
colonization?
No, to help them economically. They are not there anymore. But these people are very poor, nobody takes care of them.
In other words, to take from them, no, but to help them, yes.
To help them now to get on their things. So you have Eurasia, you have Eurafrica, and then the latest phenomenon is that the South Americans are less interested in NAFTA. They have created Mercosur, namely a South American common market, and now they're beginning to dream of preferring to join the European community. They're all Portuguese and Spanish origin, and to forget about North America. Therefore, if really the criticism of the extreme right of the United States continues, if they say, let's leave the UN, I'm no worry. We will pack up, we will take United Nations, put it in Europe. The city of Bonn is completely empty. They're looking for an international organization. And then the world order around the European Union and United Nations will be in Europe, and the United States will have lost the leadership which a man like Franklin Roosevelt had. That is the danger with these attacks against the UN. But I'm not worried, because we are going to have a world order, and even a better one than United Nations, because it will be built on what my friends have done in Europe. And I think they better think about this in Washington, because this danger is absolutely around the corner.
Where does this leave the United States? What message are you trying to tell our citizens?
To go back to the dream of Roosevelt, namely that the United States, by creating its United States, where New York was fighting New Jersey. It took 10 years to get the United States Constitution. Washington had the same trouble in the United States as we had in the world. Benjamin Franklin was sitting there not even thinking that he would ever agree to a constitution. I have read the debates of in Philadelphia. They're worse than anything people have said to each other in the United Nations. And still today...
You mean to get the 13 colonies?
Absolutely, it was horrible. And here we have now a United States that functions well. And my dream, and the dream of Roosevelt, was that since they established a balance of power, a democracy, that the United States could become the model of the world of tomorrow. And this is why Roosevelt and Truman and Wilson, they were dreaming that the world order of tomorrow would be developing on American soil. Well, if they don't like it, we'd start it somewhere else. And we have now a fantastic basis in Europe to do this, and then we will have a world order that will emanate from Europe. So I'm no longer worried about all these attacks of the US.
How are we going to get people to cooperate, say, in the Near East, where you have the Jewish and the Arab factions at each other?
I'll just pull him up there.
Yeah.
So he just went on with the new order, and that basically blackmailing America, saying that if they're not going to be a part of it, he'll take his shit to Europe and stuff them and all that kind of jazz. So, you know, they're on a mission. He's been on a mission, obviously, for a long time. So.
And so he was kind of overtaken by Klaus, you know, as we know. So there was, there's always somebody who's got a real deep-seated claw in the UN somewhere.
And there's so many Germans, funnily enough. Like the 1,000-year Reich happened, and it's still happening. And people are like, "Oh no, Hitler died, it's over." No, mate. It's funny when you look around. The best scientists in the world left the war, went to America. They all got very rich. Mm-hmm. All these UN and everything's controlled by them. You got swabsies for the WEF. Yeah. Like the Germans are around, and you know. There's like history. If you just went on history, I'm not trying to be bigoted, or I don't care about Germans. They're okay, but not a lot of humour amongst them. But apart from that, they're okay. But when you look around to see who actually, you know, controls a lot of stuff, there's always one or two of them around the corner. So they didn't go away, and the world kind of learnt twice that they can't be trusted. When you ignore what they're doing, shit goes pretty crazy in their country, and they'll come and get you.
But it's also the connection back to where the links of this knowledge comes from and how suppressed it is. And they're all working together. So we have, as we said, the four cardinals, so the northeast, southwest. And so there is in every corner of the globe, basically in every element of the globe, there is a section or a faction that's all part of this, okay? And so you'll see that even countries that are at war will all kind of vote in the UN, and there's only a couple of superpowers that have veto rights, you know, and they are usually at war with each other, but then they tend to agree on things when it comes to UN votes and things like that. So next slide, hon, the last one.
Did you get it?
No.
Ooh. All right.
Back to the PowerPoint. Yeah. So connecting all the dots. So that was just really to show you some organisations that are tied in, that are obvious in your face, that you can find just by popping it in the net. Like you can type it in and you can find it, that are connected to the, you know, governing bodies of our world, and some of the things that they've said or uttered into existence that showcase what the bigger plan is. So it's all there for us to kind of connect all the dots together. So all we're trying to do is basically highlight that it is in your face. It may not be directly given to you on a silver platter. You do have to go and find it all yourself. But when you have broken it down and when you have looked at it, it doesn't take much to really see that there is much more going on than meets the eye.
I think the occult too, the number one rule is that they have to tell us.
That's what I was saying
that,
before.
yeah, there's some deal with the devil they do.
Well, it's not just the devil, it's energy.
Well, you know,
it's the intentions. I was talking about intentions, wasn't I?
Yeah, so there's a deal they have to make, and there's a set of rules they have to follow, and if they don't follow the rules, nothing will work for them. You know, so as long as they follow the rules, then it looks like, that makes them look legitimate too. You know, if they tell you what they're doing, then no one even questions it. They're like, well, but the WEF are good. They told us what they're doing. They're no problem. They're honest. They keep telling us. And you're like...
But it gives it power. So if you utter and speak your words into existence, you are putting that into action. So you are casting the spell. So when you say or you utter what you mean and what you are intending on doing, it gives it a whole lot more power than just a thought or a synapse. You have to put it into being, and when you have a lot of collective consciousness paying attention to that, it really gives it force, right? So the thing is that one thing they can't take from us without us volunteering it over is our will and our souls. So sometimes that does come down to a battle of, you know, life and death, and that's terrible that it can get to that, but they still can't take that from us, and they know that, and they don't like that. But once we're aware of it, we have more control over that than anybody else. So when you don't surrender your will or your soul over to those powers that be, you're in control. You're always in the driver's seat. So the goal is to have people surrender willingly. That's what they want.
I think looking around, I always love picking on the NPCs, but looking around, I reckon, like, just the people I know looking, you know, at general populations, I reckon 10% of people have kind of got will left. And I reckon about 90% of people are totally giving it away. And like, you know,
I hope it's not that high.
I reckon it is. I reckon these days especially, I reckon it's high.
I believe they can get it back though.
Oh yeah, you can. You can turn it round if you want to, but it's a lot of work. And it's easier just to be an asshole, basically.
It's easier to surrender that, because then you don't have to really stand strong and fight, because it is an exhausting battle. Like it can be very tiring, and it's very isolating as well. Well,
no one likes to go against the grind. No one likes to go against the populace. So as long as they can keep 60% of the population in agreement that basically the evil deals that they're going to do in the future and they are doing now are okay, you know, because people just like, oh, it's okay, you know, lock me down. Oh, that's okay.
Or I've got nothing to hide.
But yeah, it's all the same kind of rhetoric going on, like the digital IDs getting forced on us now, which obviously all starts, like Australia's always the test ground for all this bullshit. So they've kicked all our kids off the internet now. We don't agree with that. They're my children. I'll govern them how I want. You go and govern your own children. Don't worry about mine. But they're trying to kick them off the internet. And number one reason will be to keep them stupid, because on the internet you can get on and go to places that say, oh God, our government's shit. And look at Bill Gates, what a fuck, you know, what a fuck he is.
But it's also too...
They don't want you to see any of that. They want the kids just like literally learning at school, and that's it.
But it's so people surrender their wills. So if they do it in the guise of save the children, people get emotionally connected to that. So they surrender their wills easily, thinking they're doing it for a greater purpose. And so it's all trickery. And so when you can read between the lines of the trickery, you can see that there is always an agenda attached to the great plan. Well, and they always allude to the great plan. The great plan's
well in action in Australia. We've got digital IDs coming any day, basically. That'll be 2026, I reckon we'll be seeing it. And they're going to trick us with, we're looking after the kids by making the internet safer by kicking them off. But what they'll do in a month or two, once they've done that part of the plan, they'll move on to actually kicking the adults off. and they won't kick you off. They're going to do like the old, mandate bullshit.
Yep.
They'll be like, actually, because the kid thing's not 100% perfect, everyone, all adults have to sign in. You need a digital ID online, or you can't use the internet. And that's where this is going. And that'll be here within the next 6 months. But again, I'll get all the hearsays. Oh, mate, they've tried a million times. They'll never do it. Well, it's coming this time. Coming. It's right around the corner.
And so they've already told us that. They've already told us their agenda. So when you look at all the meetings they do on their particular dates that they get from the Lucis Trust and all of that, they are about what the future plans are. So in 2015, they did their Agenda 30 meeting under the guise of sustainability goals for the world, right? Those goals are all about this unity goal from Robert Mueller, and it's all about this connection back to one world government. So you can tell me that I'm crazy for believing in this, and they like to frame it and trivialize it like I'm a conspiracy theorist. That's fine. I don't feel any emotional sadness or anger towards anyone who believes that about me. That's okay. What I do know is that there is more evidence and more information that's just available to you to make your own judgments. And you can discern whatever you like. But one thing I will say is that if you just give that over willingly, if you just believe that, if you just think that all the programming you've been told is education, then you're the one who's going to see, it's going to hit you and blindside you, and you're not going to realise where it came from. Whereas we can see kind of 10 steps ahead, and we're going to walk into this more empowered. Just like, in the last 5 years, I'm not going to say words or things to do with that, but we already kind of could see that there was going to be an event of some type in 21 because they had their
we read it in 2015.
Meetings.
We saw all the legislation that they were pushing.
They were bringing in, but we knew in 92 they had their Agenda 21 meetings. So we knew that something in that year of 2021, we didn't know exactly how. We're not that connected to every detail of their secret plans, but we knew that there was going to be something. And so we were we had, our connections to the occult of the universe and things like that to try to manifest things for our consciousness during that time, and it allowed us to weather the storm. So there are things that we are able to do, but it's really hard when you're withering away as a collective in terms of fighting back. So, but always the underdog comes through, especially when there is high vibration and energy. We've all been told that in our stories. They know it. They know that it's so hard to fight that 10%. So we've still got a lot left in us. And so there is a lot to look forward to. It's not all darkness to me. I don't feel afraid of it.
That's what we're saying with the overwhelm. There's no point getting upset. Just put into action your own plan and stick to your goals, stick to your ethics, and you'll be fine.
And find like-minded people. I mean, we're very hermity ourselves. I'm not really a social person. I don't have barbecues with people and stuff. But we still have like-minded people around that we can kind of connect with should we need to. So that accessibility and keeping those connections around you allows you to kind of foster those when you need to. So we'll leave it there, but really that was our introduction to our Shadow and Spark series. We're going to go into a whole lot more because this is a never-ending theme in the world, and it's something that we want to kind of look at from different angles. But before I go, I just wanted to touch on some interesting things. So just with you being empowered and being able to find this information on things that you want to research yourself, the CIA actually has a book on their website. So it's literally a PDF that you can download, and it's about the families in the Illuminati. Tell me, without telling me, that it's in your face, right? Why would the CIA.gov have a book all about, and so it was written back in 1995, but it's The Bloodlines of Illuminati by Fritz Springmeier, written in 1995. And so you can download this book if you want to. It's all on their website, and you can read it. But in my mind, I always go, why is it on the CIA.org website?
It's always one of those alphabet mobs who are involved with all
But
this
it's interesting that you can just download a book about bloodlines of the Illuminati from the CIA.
Oh, totally.
So in my mind, I laugh because
But then you read it, if you read it out loud, everyone will go, oh my God, that's what a conspiracy, what bullshit's this?
But it's
and you're
on
like,
the
well,
CIA
I don't know,
website.
CIA told me, this is what they
And
said.
so they actually have everything there waiting for you to download to look at, but most people don't know where to get it from. It's all just there, like it's all just sitting there. Going, we've intended, we put it out there, the public can access it if they want, but most people don't think to look there because it's hiding in plain sight, and that's one of the tricks, hiding in plain sight.
All right, so anyway, like and subscribe, all that stuff. If you want to watch the rest of the series, we're going to try to be on every Sunday where possible. So, you know, do all the standard, hit the bell, all that kind of stuff. I know our bell notifications are generally sent about a day too late, which is always convenient, but whatever. Yeah, so everyone enjoy your day, don't overwhelm, you know.
Stay empowered, keep your will